Welcome back to another episode of Adeptus Talks. Our host Hubert Colvin is joined by Emily Cotterill, the talent acquisition lead at Adama. Enjoy the episode.
So welcome back to the next episode of Adeptus Talks podcast. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Emily Cotterill, the lead talent acquisition manager at Adama. The purpose of the conversation today is really just to hear a little bit from Emily around her experience in cybersecurity and how Adama are addressing some of the challenges that the industry is facing around cyber skills. So Emily, lovely to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me on, Hubert.
No problem. So give me a little bit of context then to your background and how you've ended up in this industry then.
Well, sure. So I have been with Adama for 4.5 years. I've been quite lucky to be part of the scale up from a quite a small company to I still say small company, but small to medium sized company as we are now. My background prior to Adama, I went to university in Loughborough, did sport, completely different to what I'm doing just now, as a lot of people do at that university. I went into retail management and progressed through a graduate retail management scheme. Did that for about 5 or 6 years and got to a point where I decided that retail wasn't for me anymore. So moved into a nice, easy career in recruitment in an agency instead.
Notoriously easy, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So from one fire into another. Learned my trade there in a pretty high-paced, high-volume role. We worked across public sector, private sector, but we sat on the kind of public sector framework. So I'd work across roles in IT, business change, business analysis, project management, all sorts of different areas and different verticals. As part of that, I did a few cybersecurity roles, not a huge amount to be honest. Quite a lot of entry-level IT security, entry-level IT admin type roles. So got a chance to have a bit of experience there with tech recruiting. Worked in an agency again for it's about 3.5 years. So I progressed up. I was a recruiter initially and then became a team lead and then became kind of a hybrid account manager / recruiter. And then got to a point with it where I think as some people do in agency, they just decided they want to do something a bit different. So chose to go in-house and learn that side of recruitment as well. So moved there in 2018 with Adama, and again I was promoted to the lead of that team just over a year ago, and I've had the chance to help build it out from 80 people to about 300 where we are just now.
Brilliant. It's a great growth trajectory that as a business, and now working in-house directly for a cyber business. I guess you can say that you're fully embedded in that cybersecurity industry now. You're not on the peripheries of it delivering in. You're actually part of that working for a cyber organisation. So how has that entry into the industry been for you?
It's been really, really interesting. So I think everyone probably knows cybersecurity is a very rapidly moving, changing industry. I think coming in, the change from being in a high volume, get as many CVs as you can, get placements, do commission, into become very knowledgeable specialist in your area, learn what cybersecurity services we provide, be able to speak to candidates in an industry where it's very, very competitive. That kind of change of approach was quite different. It's something that I enjoyed though, because I like getting into the nitty gritty and the nuts and bolts of what our teams are doing. I think the other part is that my previous role was quite heavy public sector. This is obviously, cybersecurity isn't certainly not public sector. It's probably polar in terms of how the functions operate. I kind of had to learn a lot about kind of corporate business works, how it's different to public sector, and there's quite a lot of change and growth and learning, sort of moving across into the industry. And I think the other part is that Adama is full of specialists, so I get much more chance to work with people who do and deliver that role every day. So that's learn what they're doing, what's going on in the industry, and just kind of get a lot closer to that.
Yeah, and so working in the talent side of the business, obviously people in security is a big topic across the industry, not just for the staffing community, but for the hiring managers looking to build their teams, for companies looking to build their internal cyber resilience, and so on and so forth. So no doubt you're kind of on the edge of the trends in changes in talent strategies for organisations, particularly for Adama. What is it that you're seeing at the moment is the key challenges that businesses are facing when it comes to managing cyber talent?
Sure. So I think there are a few to kind of call out. One, and I know we're still talking about it, but post-pandemic, I think candidate expectations around their work-life balance, hybrid working, remote working, what they expect pre and post-pandemic is quite different. And that has been quite a challenge. I think a lot of companies have struggled to decide what approach they want to take, what risk that has, because it's almost an unknown risk of if they say, right, we need to do this, what will happen? And yeah, kind of working out the best way forward that can incorporate that work-life balance. So potentially give you hybrid working or enforce people to come back to the office and potentially lose them. So I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for us to kind of work through. And it's not been easy. I think it's a process that's still evolving, but we have put in place a kind of set hybrid working expectation, which is 2 days a week in the office and 3 from home. Our offices being Edinburgh, London. We do have people who work remotely, but I think we have to have a balance there of what skills are available in the industry, what skills we need in the business versus who lives near Edinburgh and London. So that's been a big challenge to kind of work out as well.
Yeah. And obviously that kind of hybrid working is becoming far more common in workplace now. As you say, driving people back to the office environment is becoming more popular with businesses. Certainly, what I think we're seeing is that more organisations are wanting to go that way, but it's potentially the demand of the candidates that are preventing it. Do you see what for you are the key benefits and values of driving people back into the office space?
Sure. I think two kind of key ones for us are the collaboration element. You can collaborate remotely. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I think you saw that when the pandemic just put everyone at home. But I think we've sometimes lost the kind of element of that closeness in relationships with your colleagues and having people back in the office just a couple of days a week to meet with the teams. For me as a line manager, actually kind of see someone in person does make a difference, because I feel like you can read emotions more easily. You can kind of get a feel for how they're feeling more easily. That's a really, really big part of it. The other part I would say is I think it's really, really important for someone new to the business to help them feel involved in what we're doing. And that sometimes, it can be done remotely. There are some examples of companies doing it very well, but I think getting someone in, getting them to meet people, getting them to see where you can work and speak to other people in the team who might have similar experiences or backgrounds to them is key. Because on video, you can talk to one person, 2 people at a time easily. But in an office, you might get a group of 6 or 7 together playing Mario Kart, for example.
That's it.
So yeah, I think collaboration is a key one. The other part, is actually mental kind of well-being. I think it's very easy to sit at home and get isolated. And we know research shows post-pandemic that we're in a well-being crisis from a mental health perspective, and a lot of people underestimate the importance of social interaction. I think that's the kind of other key thing for us of why we're encouraging people to come, not full-time, but touch points.
So on the cybersecurity skills gap as a piece, there's a lot of varying opinion on this. Let's say some that say it firmly exists, it's holding businesses back, it's an impact, and it's sometimes a cause of cyber breaches because people don't have the human capital to be building their cyber resilience. Whereas other people are saying there's not really a skill shortage, there's just a lack of cross training, upskilling, or there's too much turnover in the industry that it's preventing companies really leveraging the capability of human capital. What's your take on it?
I probably sit on the second of those points. So I think that there are lots of people trying to get into the industry. I think there are lots of people wanting to be in the industry. I believe there is a skills gap at a more experienced level, but that's because we're not necessarily providing access routes for people to get into the industry easily. So there are tons and tons of access courses, but how many people actually are targeting people from those courses? I don't know a figure. I've not got any kind of data to just kind of put this point across, but we see, I'm approached daily by 10, 20 people wanting to get into the industry who aren't sure where to start, or they've done a cyber course but haven't managed to get an opportunity. So I think the want is there. I think companies need to work harder to make it more accessible at that entry point, and then really think about how they can give people who come in at that entry point perhaps without a huge amount of cyber experience, a really strong career path to get to where we need them to be in terms of sort of fulfilling that gap.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because again, there's a lot of talk in the industry of companies having too high expectations, or certain fixed parameters around certifications required, and so on and so forth, that is often putting people off applying to jobs, or being the first block to them actually getting an opportunity within their business, and then developing those skills over time. How do Adama tackle that challenge specifically of bringing new people into the industry?
Sure. So I think that the first point to kind of precursor this is with it's something that's always going to be evolving, and we can only be as good as we think we are at any one time. But we've got a couple of things that we do to try and get people in who perhaps haven't had a degree in cybersecurity, for example. One of the things that's really cool, really keen to talk about is we've recently run a Get Started in Cybersecurity program. So we partnered with the Prince's Trust to launch that, and that's aimed at helping disadvantaged young people and to some extent neurodiverse people pursue a career in cyber. So we had a group of around 10 people in to do a week's work within our office, meeting people, go through workshops, so finding out what the business does, with a view that we then have got a connection with them for the future to potentially look at our entry-level SOC roles, security operations roles, entry-level security engineering roles, entry-level software engineering roles. And yeah, I think just having that connection to that course is trying to open access up for people that perhaps wouldn't have had access previously.
Yeah, that's a great thing, because often it's getting that initial experience within a workplace or within an organisation that can then give you that kickstart to going on and getting a full opportunity, let's say, to actually learn and develop in the role too. So that's a really interesting initiative. And in terms of the reason behind that, why do you feel it's important for Adama to run such an initiative like that?
So I think the kind of key thing that we're trying to do as a company is we want to make sure that we're nurturing a culture that is successful in the long term and sustainable for Adama. And I'm not going to say we've been perfect. We certainly haven't. The industry's very white male dominated, but we recognise that if you can develop a workforce that has top performers in all backgrounds, genders, ethnicities, different levels of neurodivergence, for example, you're going to contribute to the business as a whole, because they do bring different perspectives, they bring different personalities, they bring different ideas that perhaps challenge what people in the business think. And I think it's really, really important to recognise that and use that as a tool to help push the business forward. And that's, I think, where Adama sits. We really want to make sure that we're committed to having that diversity in the business, because we feel like it gives better ideas, more innovation, and it's something that can help both the individuals and us as a business.
Tell us, if you will, a little bit about your personal experiences with that, because I know that you feel that you've come into the industry with a degree of diversity in your background as well.
Sure. So there is research around LGBTQ plus leaders, particularly females, actually struggling to get into leadership roles. I think they're underrepresented at board level across business as a whole. So I identify as a gay female. Never been a problem with Adama. I've always felt comfortable sort of talking about it. I would actually argue it's the first place I have been comfortable just saying that I'm married, I've got a wife, and I've never had anyone sort of bat an eyelid about that, which is great. I also recently I've got a very long rugby history, which I'm now retired from, but I also very recently had a knee replacement pretty early. So I've got 1.5 robotic knees, and currently, again, I'm sort of recognised as having a mobility issue. So that's, in terms of sort of diversity, I don't want to say I tick boxes, but I do tick boxes. But yeah, I think Adama have been hugely supportive of that. They were hugely supportive of my surgery. They've been hugely supportive of my recovery, and I've never ever had any issue with my sexuality as well. So it's sort of a great environment to be in from that perspective.
Yeah, it is. It's hugely refreshing, and look, hopefully the general trend in the industry is that more businesses are wanting to move down that route, but it's hard. You do see some that are struggling to get that right within organisations and really give people that degree of comfort in the environment that they find themselves in the workplace. Moving on to kind of the further diversity piece within the business, because again, that's obviously a massive topic when it comes to managing the cyber skills gap, but also bringing more just general diversity into the cybersecurity industry anyway. How, as a talent lead, are you and the business tackling that for your organisation?
Sure. So we recently appointed a new chief people officer. So I think I mentioned that September 2022. She came in to the business as our first chief people officer. I think we had recognised that in Adama, we perhaps had been guilty at times of hiring in our own likeness. I don't go too much into unconscious bias, but unconscious bias is a thing. It's not something that's done on purpose, but I think we recognise that there are quite a lot of people in the business who maybe weren't aware of it. And by her coming in, she certainly wasn't in the likeness of some of our leaders, and that's actually made us kind of pivot and think about D&I a lot more deeply, I think, than we were before. So in my role, I was kind of tasked straight away with looking at reviewing our whole talent acquisition process, looking at whether it was accessible to start with, how simple it was. It was pretty complicated, and we've simplified it back to be fewer stages, more straightforward. We have looked at our adverts and our outreach generally, so how they read, how complicated they were, but also we've recently onboarded a language analytics provider who can analyze our adverts and outreach and look at what words we're using, whether those words are biased, whether those words potentially put off candidates from different backgrounds. So sort of male gendered words, female gendered words, things like that, but also words that are ableist or might indicate an inherent kind of underlying bias in how it's written. So that's been a really big part of what we've looked at.
That's a huge amount of detailed strategy that's then going into to presenting an image of the business that's all inclusive and looking to attract that hugely diverse range of talent. Have you seen that actually lead on to a change in the kind of people that are applying to the business, or you've been able to attract?
So I've kind of a good thing from a gender diversity perspective. Last year we hired 8 people. So I guess to give context, we're about 300 people. So we hired 8 females last year into sort of technical roles, so cyber oriented roles, across the whole year, so 12 months. Since the new CPO joined, we've already hired more than that into technical roles this year. So we're sort of, wow. I can't work that out as a percentage quickly because my quick maths is terrible, but significantly more kind of females coming through the pipeline and getting to that kind of offer stage. So that has made an impact. I should probably add we're also looking at we've also done unconscious bias training and interview training with our leadership and looked at balance in our interview panel. So if we've got a female in the process, they meet another female, so all the kind of touch points that could impact that process have been reviewed, and I think that really has made an impact in terms of the number of candidates, not just applicants, but people actually progressing through to offer as well.
That's really interesting to see such an immediate result almost to just changing that approach to how you're presenting the business brand. The statement that Adama kind of goes to market with is together we've got this. That's kind of the big catchphrase that the business pushes out. Do you feel that does stem through the business, that there is that togetherness in the way that people are operating? Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's the kind of core kind of brand message, is that together we've got this. That part that kind of talks very closely about us partnering with our customers to protect their promise of cyber resilience, but I do think it plays down through our people, that we're better together, and together we can do anything and improve things. I think the other thing I'd like to call out is we in terms of our actual hiring process and how we're thinking about diversity strategy moving forward, trying to make things more accessible, but we're also looking at, we've got job descriptions, but we're looking at trying to hire against people's potential rather than just that job description. I think we also recognise that there are people who, again, particularly females, who don't always apply if they don't meet all the criteria, whereas guys typically do. So trying to make those job descriptions less scary, less male-filled language, it's quite a big kind of initiative around that, which is really helping.
Yeah, no, super. So it's clear that the business itself at the moment is doing quite a lot to really change its talent acquisition strategy and be that more inclusive environment. What are the big goals for the business then in terms of talent over the next couple of years?
Cool. So we're going to be in another growth phase again soon. We currently are the largest independent UK cybersecurity services company. I expect that our plans will include expansion out with the UK, which is obviously going to come with a lot of new strategy needed around diverse hiring and how to attract talent from overseas. But I think for us, it's continuing to build on what we've done already. So continuing to look at gender parity in the workforce and make sure that we stay hot on that topic and how we make sure we keep attracting females. The second part I would say really key is around retention of those people. I think we've talked a lot about the first part of the process, getting people into the business, but that's just the first part of the process. It's very easy then just to lose that person, because if you've brought someone in because you've got your process right to get those people into the business. You then need to make sure your culture, your environment, and everything that you do within the business actually helps retain them. So, there's a couple of other programs we do internally to help with retention of females. But yeah, I think a lot of companies maybe make that mistake that they put a lot of effort into getting diverse range of candidates in, but then don't think about how they can retain them after.
There is. It's a huge turnover industry, not least because a lot of companies are hiring and trying to draw talent out of their competitors' businesses to gain access to that. So I think you're right. It's not just about bringing them into the business. It's then about creating an environment people want to stay in and feel they're being developed in as well, progressing in their own lives and their own careers.
I think the other part that we're also looking at now is we're about to launch an initiative specifically around neurodiversity. So we're putting together a business case for funding to potentially bring in someone to look at our process from a neurodiverse perspective and see whether it's accessible from that angle as well. Because again, we recognize that I think cyber and IT specifically, the highest percentage of neurodiverse people work in our industry, and it's very easy to design a process that makes it inaccessible for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's another
So what advice would you have to somebody then that is looking to get into cybersecurity at the moment and is thinking, Christ, where do I start?
I kind of few people. I'll probably give you top 5 if that's all right with you. So basics is really, really important. I think just a basic course around networking, sort of programming languages. Python's particularly useful, and then sort of learning general cybersecurity processes and procedures will be a good foundation to build upon. Qualifications, they're not the be all and end all, but if you can pursue a higher education course, college course, online course, it doesn't have to be a degree, or potentially like an immersive training program. So up in Scotland, we've got I'll not name them. But there's a particularly good immersive training program that lasts for 16 weeks that's based up in Edinburgh, and then potential certification. So we'd probably recommend CompTIA Security Plus, maybe Microsoft Technology Associate as baseline qualification to have. There are plenty of others, and there are loads and loads of online resources that you can get skilled in sort of security tech. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, and what would you say to people about debating whether it is or isn't the right industry for them to get into?
I think it's difficult because I think there's a career. I think there's a career for everyone in cyber. I think you're not necessarily in the technical side, but there are so many other career options within the industry. So you could look at like consulting, for example. Yes, that's technical in a sense, but it's based more around your presentation skills, how you communicate information, how you negotiate with clients to make sure that they get what's good for their needs and what's good for our business. So I think just think about what you enjoy, assess the different options, chat to recruiters. We're not always super available. A lot of people do speak to us, but I think working out what you enjoy doing, don't limit yourself to one area. And then just give it a go. There are plenty of ways to try it out and just see if you like it.
Yeah, no, great advice. Great advice. So what's on the agenda for you then in the next stages of your career and your journey with Dharma?
So I think for me, I'm still relatively new in my talent acquisition role. I think I mentioned I'm just in it over a year. So for me, I'm looking at leadership style. I certainly need to look at my unconscious biases in more detail. I think I've recognised them, but sort of working on how to proactively tackle them would be a key development point for me. Keep learning. I've had great opportunity within Adama to learn and grow the company and be part of a small startup mentality type business to now where we're at maturing our processes and looking ahead strategically. So I think it's going to be looking at how we continue to grow our talent acquisition team, how we continue to evolve and develop our processes and improve them, to be honest. That's kind of my goal the next 12 months is just to continue evolving where we're at and making sure that process is as accessible, inclusive, and efficient as possible.
Excellent. No, it sounds good. But no, look, I think you've given us a really interesting insight from somebody that's on the front line, as you say, in terms of that talent challenge that the businesses are facing, and outline some key initiatives that you feel is working for Adama as an organisation that I'm sure will ring true to some of the challenges and some of the objectives that a lot of other businesses have. But I think what's reassuring is the message that there is a movement in cyber of trying to diversify the sector that much more and open it up to being a more welcoming environment for people of all different sorts of backgrounds and disability levels and so on and so forth, so that the industry can leverage the capability that some of these people have, but don't necessarily get the opportunities to demonstrate or deliver it back into the industry. That really, I personally think are significant to helping overcome the perceived or not perceived cybersecurity skills gap that are facing when recruiting.
I think it's just really important to kind of call out that if you just run an advert how you think you should run an advert, quite often you'll get 100 applicants who are white males, but the go-to assumption is, oh well, that's just because those are the people that can do that job. But actually, if you delve even just a tiny bit deeper, and you look at how you've done the outreach, what language you've used, where it's been posted or where it's been promoted, and what your talent pools look like, you can maybe recognize that you've inadvertently created a barrier to a BAME candidate applying, a female candidate applying, an LGBTQ plus a candidate applying. And that's where I think we need to really switch the dial and look into it more deeply. And I'd recommend any other TA lead or company to think about that in more detail.
Cool. So within security, there's obviously the diversity piece, and you've mentioned the gender side of things as well. And there's been a lot of conversation around gender parity within the industry too. What are Adama's initiatives around that to ensuring that it is an equal environment for people once they have attracted them into the business?
Cool. So yeah, I would kind of call out two things. We have recently sponsored the Empowering Women to Lead in Cybersecurity program, which is a pretty cool initiative. It's a gender diversity initiative that helps women enhance their leadership skills within the industry, and also improve their confidence to lead within the industry. We initially sponsored that in Scotland. I believe we've now expanded that initiative to cover England as well. And it's one of the kind of first steps towards a program being offered across the UK.
Oh wow!
So it's pretty cool initiative. A number of people from our business have been on it as well, and have really sort of seen the benefit of that, and are in leadership roles now. So that's one of the things. I guess the second thing I just want to talk about is we have a Women in Business quarterly meetup within Adama, to what I've kind of touched on earlier about having that internal culture that lends itself to people staying. We have people who are guest speakers. We have people who talk from within the business about their experiences of being a female in the industry. And it's just good to know that you're not the only one, and you don't always kind of feel the same thing. So those are kind of two things that I think it's important to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, super. Thank you, Emily. Real pleasure talking to you today and hearing your insights. For anybody interested in Adama as a business, please reach out to Emily. I'm sure she'll be very pleased to have a conversation with you all. And it sounds like there's some interesting plans for the business as well. So no doubt some great opportunities that are going to be coming up soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. It's been great to talk to you.
Thanks, Emily.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Adeptis Talks. Head over to our website www.adeptisgroup.com to listen to more, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for more episodes coming soon.